So what should conservative philanthropy do in response if we're in a revolutionary time, as you say, with grant making like Mellons and the others
Where
about?
there's a joke, you probably heard an internet joke going around that the new right is saying it's what time? Do you know what time it is? You don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
So what you don't know what time it is means what's the current situation? What the Marxists used to say? The Marxists used to say, what is the correlation of forces, right? What's the situation? Well, the situation is we've got this new left, which is different from, as I say, the left of 30, 40 years ago. It's not Arthur Schlesinger, who loves America in a different way. It's not the loyal opposition. So conservative philanthropy has to be sort of aware of that. I think they are starting to catch on, not completely, but they are. At this point, I think they're funding both what we call the legacy conservative institutions and elements of national conservatism, the new right, and so on. They're funding both right now. In other words, intellectually, you might say there's the what's called the new right or national conservatism, and this would be Hillsdale, Claremont, Heritage. Certainly, those three represent sort of those forces who are talking more not in status quo terms, and more in counter-revolutionary terms. And there's more legacy right, which is to an extent American Enterprise Institute, AEI, some other groups. Now I work at the Hudson Institute, and we're mainly focused on national security. So it sort of avoids that in a sense. I mean, I focus on this. Obviously, as is clear from my writing, I'm on the new right side of things, which sees this as we're in a new era. Let's know what time it is. This is a revolutionary, or actually a counter-revolutionary period, because the revolution has already succeeded. The progressive, to an extent, not 100%. Mm-hmm. The progressive revolution, the woke revolution, that was implemented particularly during the George Floyd days. What you have now is a counter-revolution, another revolution that's against counter-revolutionaries have said, equally revolutionary, but it's overthrowing the previous revolution. This actually goes back to the sort of early National Review. That's what these people were saying. They weren't saying we favor the status quo. They were saying we want to reverse something, as well as cop authority history yelling stop. It was also there's certain things we want to reverse. Mm-hmm. So in a way, this is what Buckley was saying, what Kendall and Burnham, what we're saying. Mm-hmm. So Frank Meyer had the old fusionism. So the Philadelphia Society, a lot of talk about fusionism. So actually, what's going around the corner? I got into this to an extent there, but it's only so much. You only have 15 minutes to speak, so it wasn't that long. But we're seeing a new fusionism emerge. I didn't talk about this and didn't have time to get to it in the speech, so I'm talking about it now. Where to look for that? Who's explaining it pretty well is Henry Olson. In other words, conservatism in the Republican Party will win through coalition. So the new right is not by itself enough. The legacy conservatives at AEI are not enough. It has to be sort of a coalition of this new right and the legacy right. The issue, I guess, is who's the main force? What's the cutting edge? Who's making the issues? That was the old, when Straussians used to argue about the regime. What does the regime mean? The regime is sort of the cutting edge. Who are the people setting the tone? So right now it's Heritage, Hillsdale, Claremont. It's that new right focus, or you can use another term, national conservatism or just whatever. 21st century. I mean, that's sort of the center, and there's some old right people that are going along, some aren't. But I mean, you have these foundations, Scaife and Bradley, and they're sort of funding both groups, which makes sense, I guess, from their point of view. Mm-hmm. Just so there's an awareness, times have changed. That's all I'm suggesting here, that we're aware of what's changing.
Mm-hmm. How about John?
So I think that's the, and so that politically it's fusionism, intellectually it's fusionism.
Yeah. What about in this counter-revolution, as you describe it, use of government to react to liberal philanthropy, either regulation, oversight, taxation?
Well, I think yes, it's use of government. It's use of government in the sense of the founding fathers. A perfect example of use of government was the Disney controversy. Walt Disney Corporation is a huge presence in Florida. It employs many people. It sets sort of the cultural tone in a sense, and it was instituting sort of woke progressivism, with supporting transgenderism and all this and that in Florida, and the government of the state of Florida objected and acted and blocked Florida from doing certain things. I'm sorry, blocked Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's think of an analogous situation. Let's go back to 18th century Virginia. What if there was an East India? There was an East India Company. It was a powerful company. Remember, they had a tea monopoly. They were doing this and that. What if the East India Company that set up shop in Virginia, and there was the Virginia Tea Company, whatever, was an affiliate of the British East India Company, was a local affiliate, and they're doing this in Virginia. They're coming out with their own set of manners and mores, and essentially rejecting the principles of the American founding. They are rejecting the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Do you think that the Virginia founders, wouldn't have done so? Would just let the East India Company take over the culture of Virginia, or the government being the state of Virginia? I remember Jefferson actually wrote a whole book on this, the state of Virginia, queries what the state should do. So that's government acting. Other state governments enacted in education, stopping CRT, critical race theory, or woke progressivism, or the 1619 Project cannot be taught in the schools in Texas or Florida or Nebraska or whatever. So there's a bunch of states that have acted, and these are governments, state governments. And the federal government has acted. The President of the United States, through executive orders, said the federal government will not permit, federal funds will not be spent in education to promote critical race theory or 1619 Project. So the government has acted. And I contend if this happened in Virginia or Massachusetts, can you see John Adams sitting on his hands and doing nothing as the East India Company spread transgenderism in 18th century? And there was hermaphrodites. There was a situation we could even think this was even possible. There were crazy elements of the French Revolution, of the utopian forces, parts of the Enlightenment, not the Anglo Enlightenment, not the Scottish Enlightenment, but parts of the French Revolution that were doing crazy things. And Jefferson and and particularly Hamilton and Adams opposed that. And certainly they would have used the government of Massachusetts, the government of the United States, as Trump had done. Yes, so yes, there is a use of government for the common good. That's right in the Constitution. The question of the general welfare. Does this contribute to the general welfare? Today, foundations like the Mellon Foundation that promote DEI, that promote 1619, that promote transgenderism, is that part of the general welfare of the United States? We certainly can argue it's not, and perhaps they shouldn't have. They should lose their tax exempt status if their goal is to overthrow the United States, to overthrow the manners and mores. What would the founders have done? I think they would have acted. So yes, acting using the government not as New Deal liberals, but as founding fathers, small r classical Republicans. Mm-hmm. So that's an answer. It's a yes answer to your question. Yeah. But in a nuanced way, not as Franklin Roosevelt, Jefferson, or Hamilton would have done.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, I think given the time, we might end there, unless there's something you want to add. Well,
we didn't get too much to Reese, but he was on the right track then. In those days, he was worried about communism and economics.
Yeah.
Now it's partly economics, because these people they're also against capitalism, the new wave in the 21st century, but they're even more against the culture, and more against sort of America. I mean, they really now they have a problem with America, what I like to call historic America. That's what their problem is. Mm-hmm. And you didn't get this in the past. So this is what's truly revolutionary on their part, and their revolutionary part requires a counter-revolutionary response to reject all. So I think that's what's going on. I think American philanthropy, I think they're starting to be aware of it, maybe not completely, but they've got to start to be aware of it. It's not just a battle for the free market, although important as that is, and that's an important front, but that's not the only front. This whole cultural front is there, and they're doing it. I mean, Christopher Rufo got an award, James Pearson. So these are people that are addressing the culture more. So yeah, I think this is being addressed or starting to be addressed. You have this argument, as I've written, between NatCons and free cons, which the free cons have started. You know, they don't like supposedly NatCons are using government, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've just explained how it's using government in the sense of the founders would have done it, not in the sense of FDR. But politically, the only way Republicans can win and conservatives is a form of coalition. It's not enough of one group or the other. And that's how actually the election in 2024 was won by both groups actually voting for the Republican candidate. The same thing will happen in the future. And that's how the Democrats will win, too, for that matter, because that's the American system. You still have, we don't have, we're not Europeans. Our coalitions are these two parties that form before the election, not after the election, as say they do in Europe. So those are the issues that I wanted to bring to the fore.
Well, great. Thanks so much for doing this with us today, John Fonte.